Behind me, you can see a pit and a septic tank that we're about to submerge. Today, we're going to talk about the septic systems used in residential construction. If it comes down to choosing between a septic tank or a sewer, let me assure you that if you bought a site with a sewer system, you are one lucky individual. Because if that's the case, you won't need to get involved with the sewage system at all. All you'll need to do is connect with the water district or the HOA you're working in. They will connect you to a sewage system and your issue will be solved, just like that. But if you weren't so lucky and had to buy a plot where you need a septic system, welcome to hell. I'm kidding, of course. It's not hell. Not quite. But it's a specific and tedious process with a lot of steps. You need properly licensed specialists, from designers to inspectors. So, let's dive in and learn about the steps you take when you're working on a septic system. First step would, of course, be design. The work begins when you buy a plot and start to figure out where you want to place your house. Before you make any plans, ask a septic engineer. They will be able to give you whatever requirements there are for the septic system, and you can use those to start working on a plan for your house. If you don't have enough space for a septic field, which is also sometimes called a leach field, you won't be able to build as big of a house as you might have wanted. The overall size of your house is going to be limited, and so is the number of rooms you can have. For that exact reason, the process of designing a septic system doesn't start when you buy the territory. It should start before that, when you're choosing a territory to buy. The planning should start in the very beginning steps of your construction. So, let's say you're done with the designing and planning, and you're ready to start working on your project. The next step is getting a permit. You're probably familiar with the process of getting permits. You end up needing a lot of them in this business. Before you can get the permit, you already need to be searching for a septic installer. If you couldn't guess from the name, that's the person who's going to actually install the septic system for you. This is because in the permit application, you're required to list the engineer, the installer, and the company. Everybody that's going to be working on the system needs to be written down. Your septic installer absolutely has to have a license. That's mandatory. You can't get your septic system installed unless you hire somebody with a valid license. Once you reach the stage where you're actually ready to install the system, you'll have less to worry about. That stuff is up to the septic installer you've hired. Today, we are going to talk to our installer. His name is Tom, and we've been working with him for the last 3 years. This guy has installed quite a lot of septic systems for us, and he's definitely taught me about this process. He has unique knowledge in this field. Meet Tom.
Hello, Tom.
Hello, Igor. How are you today?
Yes, I am fine. How are you, sir?
Good. Doing well.
Yeah, I have today video about septic system
Yes.
that we use on our projects, and I want to ask you a couple questions for our viewers. What's the main point that they need to pay attention when they order septic contractor for their projects?
Well, if I personally was looking for a septic contractor, I would want to find somebody that's got experience. I would want to find somebody that has, the proper insurance. Is in good with his vendors that he uses. You want to make sure that he's solvent. He's not, robbing Peter to pay Paul to pay for the jobs, right? Yeah. And so again, you want to make sure that you've got somebody that knows what they're doing, that has a good relationship with the engineer that has designed the system, has a good relationship with the county, that the county knows that this particular installer does good work, and they're going to have a good installation. Well, I have been doing this for 22 years.
22 years?
22 years.
Oh my God.
And so
How many septic systems did you do?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
Many septic systems. I don't know if it's that much, but it's quite a bit.
It's close to 1,000.
And I have had to demonstrate for both the installer that I was working under and also the inspectors that came. They had to inspect my work to know that, again, that I'm capable of doing this type of work. And so that's how that works. If you ever want to, let's just say you meet a septic installer on the street and he says, hey, here's my business card, I'd like to do some business with you. You can go on to the TCEQ website
Okay.
And you can look that person up and you can find out if
yes?
they are licensed.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can do that.
That's a very, very good advice. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're going to do business with anybody, you know, the first thing that you should do is also ask them for a copy of their insurance certificate. You want to make sure that they've got insurance and that they have a valid certificate and that they're taking care of their things. So
Let's fast forward. You've designed your project, got your permit, the house is basically ready, and it's time to begin septic installation. This stage of construction can be divided into a couple parts. Our obvious first step is to decide on a location for the septic tank and the septic field. The size of the pit you make will depend on your house. In the documents from your engineer, you'll find what kind of tank you need, and your installer will order it for you. The first concern is planning for the installment of the septic system. After your septic installer has made all the plans, they make a pit like this with an excavator. Once the site is ready, a special truck will bring in your tank and assemble it in the pit. Once that's done, you have to bring in an inspector. If they approve the septic tank, then you're cleared to move on to your next step, the leach field.
What is the process, whole process of installation?
So typically the way I like to do, and they can vary, like for instance, houses on the lake. I have gone in and built the entire septic system before they even put one board up to pour the foundation for the house, okay? Just because of spaces, being able to get the tank truck into the area to put the tank in the ground, things of that nature. But typically what I like to do is I want to find the sewer line on the building, I want to excavate the tank hole and set the tank. That way I can be filling that with water, and then I can build the drain field while I'm waiting for that to happen, right? So I like to have as much of it built as possible before the inspector gets here so that he can look at all of it and be able to cover it all up and backfill it, smooth it out, make it look good all at one time. But every job, it doesn't matter where it's at, every job presents its own challenges. And so I have to look at every single job I'm going to approach. I won't bid a job unless I have gone personally to go and see it so that I know what I'm getting into and I know what to expect. But typically we would put the septic tank in first and then build the drain field, get that inspected, then we would backfill. You know, another thing is you've got to have final electrical power before you can have a final inspection on a septic system.
I'm going to tell you what I know about two different types of septic systems. The first one is a pipe system. The name sort of speaks for itself here. You lay pipes along the field and cover them with dirt so that they're secured below your home. The other option, though, is a chamber system, which is where you place plastic materials in the ground rather than laying pipe. In my experience, a chamber system doesn't require a maintenance contract. What is that? Well, a maintenance contract is a very important document that you'll have to prepare early on, around the time you get your permit, if you decide to use a pipe system. With a chamber system, you don't need one. It's always nice to check something off your list. So that's a bonus of using this kind of system. Your soil is what determines what kind of system you need, though. Way back in the preparation stage, the septic engineer asks you to make a profile hole, which is a tool for identifying the kind of soil. You can't actually do any real planning without knowing what the soil type is. So, really, the kind of system you use later on is determined in those initial stages.
Tom, share with us, please, the most challenging project in your life.
They would be, I've had some homes that were rather large, you know, some 12, 13,000 square foot homes that have had very large septic systems for those, and those have been challenging. You know, working in the Austin, Texas area, you never know whether or not you can dig down 12 feet or if you're going to scratch the dirt and have to hammer every inch out of the tank hole. One other thing that always comes into play is that you got to have a good plumber, right? Because the plumber really should look at the septic plans before he even thinks about how he is going to run the plumbing in the building.
Yeah, usually it's a standard problems, and when plumber guy don't install his pipe
that is
in
correct.
the correct place.
That is correct. And another thing that's very challenging on the septic side of things, so we have our own set of rules that we have to adhere to. Plumbers have the plumbing code that they go off of. So let me give you an example. In the plumbing code, you can bring the sewer line out of a building and the water line out of the building right beside each other. That does not work at all on the septic side. The water and the sewer line must be 10-foot minimum apart where they exit the sewer line. If you were going to lay out a design for a house, you would want to try to do water on the other side of the house of where you're going to have the septic system. Because when you've got a water line that's stubbed out and you have a tank to contend with and the drain field to contend with, then you're talking about sleeving and all kinds of things to get around what the actual rule, not to get around the rule, but to adhere to the rules. So that becomes very difficult.
Yeah, I remember this case. We had same case in the Crazy Horse project when water line was very close to.
That is correct.
To the septic, yeah.
And this is something, this is not new. Like I said, I've been doing this for 22 years. I have been telling builders for 22 years, keep the water and the sewer line 10 foot separate. So that's a must. We have to have that done that way.
The last step of building your septic system is, of course, inspections. You go through a couple of different inspections. The first one will be done when you have the tank assembled and the septic field formed. The second one will happen when everything is fully assembled and the septic field is covered with soil. For this one, the septic inspector comes over and makes sure that the entire process was done correctly, and there are no problems with the system, tank, or field. The final inspection will be done once the whole system is working. Once you pass that inspection, you'll receive a special license to operate, which is a document that actually allows you to use this septic system. This paper goes with all the other documents to the house, and it's a sign that your septic system is finally completed. Celebration time! This video has been a quick excursion into the septic world. In reality, this is a really complicated job. You can make a lot of different combinations and system modifications, and there are different approaches for designing and installing too. But remember, the key to success is making sure that each of the 3 stages, planning, installation, and inspection, are done by specialists who have a valid license and are registered in the state where you're working. These people are professionals who know more about this process than you do, because that's their job. Make sure you choose specialists who you trust, so that in 3 to 5 years, your home sewage system is still functioning properly. Personally, I don't want to think about where my sewage is going at all after I move in.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're building a $300,000 house or a $3 million house.
Yeah.
If your septic system doesn't work and you can't use your facilities, then you basically have nothing. And so this is a very, very important aspect in all construction, both in residential and commercial.
All right, friends, good luck with all your future endeavors in the septic world. I'm off to do some digging, because today I have to work on installing our system.